Hey everybody, back again, taking a look at one of my custom action figures. This time my newly completed Spawn figure, and this guy's about 6-7 inches tall. I've always been a big fan of Spawn since I was little. I loved all the McFarlane toys, even the really early ones and the comics, and I just always thought like his backstory and his costume were really awesome. So when I got this request, I knew I couldn't pass up because I could make Spawn figures all day, forever, to be honest. And this one specifically is based off of Greg Capullo's look, and that's when Spawn kind of transforms and he loses some of the red parts on his body, and he gains like these big armored pieces and the notorious boot on his left leg, or his right leg, sorry, and then his big gauntlet on his right. And Capullo had a way of drawing him that I tried to capture, especially with his trunk, his torso, and his cape. That's to say, like just really big, like chest puffed out, leaning backwards almost, and then the cape would taper. It'd be really thin up top, and then kind of flare out at the bottom. And then we have, the classic collar and those pieces that hang over the shoulders. Also, something else to note on this guy, the client was specific that he wanted two interchangeable heads, one based off of Capullo's like early renderings of maskless Spawn, and that's when he still had like the shoelace stitched in his face because his face was torn open. And then later on, Spawn goes through sort of another transformation, and he gets his face blown off even more, so it's more skull-like, and usually grinning or just like screaming, and both have those angry eyes, and both of them I've always referred to them as hamburger heads, so that brought back a lot of nostalgia creating those. And then his main masked head and his symbol on his chest, very Capullo-esque, so I tried to go with that. And another interesting thing was I was told sort of to ignore the previous figures that came from McFarlane Toys based off of this look, because sometimes I like to have a 3D reference to work off of, and instead just use all of the 2D art. He was really specific that he wanted the Capullo design to come through, so I think I captured it pretty well. Alright, so let's take a closer look at this guy, his articulation, the way like his cape is engineered, for example, and some details. So I sculpted over a face-off Marvel Legends Punisher body and just really went to town on this, and I used black epoxy sculpt from Aves. And I thought that'd be easier than using the normal like bone color and then painting it all black. Instead, I started with black. So I got rid of the torso crunch because I didn't think that was really important, and that way I could have his defined musculature. So he still has the waist swivel. His ball jointed shoulders are restricted by his cape shoulders. And he still has the double jointed elbows, and those work out pretty well. And then I also switched his thigh joints to 90 degrees, and that was at the request of the customer. So for his cape, I took what I learned from the last Spawn figure that I made, and that was incidentally based off of the Image 10th anniversary collector's Spawn, and I made the cape in multiple parts. So this is 4 parts, just like the previous Spawn. So there's the main body right here, his collar, and then these 2 that drape over the shoulders, so 4 pieces. And along the brim of his collar, I put a wire inside, so there's a wire that goes all the way around here, and that can be, because Spawn's collar is like a character in itself sometimes and conveys a lot of emotion, and not just which direction the wind is blowing, you know, in the alleys. So he can do cool stuff like that. And there's also wires on each side right here that go down, so his cape can flare out pretty dramatically. Alright, and then last but not least, and a major feature, are the interchangeable heads, so they pop off of the ball joint right there. And let's put this screaming hamburger head on, because this one's fun. These were really fun to sculpt, and just took me back to the figures that I always had and I always wanted. Because the popular ones were, you know, the classic Spawn with his mask, and I could never ever find those. So I always had one with the hamburger head, and I was like, well, now I can make any of them and have any kind of Spawn I want. So there's that one. And here's the one with the stitches and Cyan's little shoelace. So there's that one, more of a classic look on that one. Alright, I'll put this one back on because I like it the best, I think. Nothing says Spawn like that head, in my opinion. Alright, so some look at details. Like I said, everything has been sculpted. 100% of the body is covered. His Malbolgia emblem is sculpted, and these skulls, for instance, were sculpted separately, and then I glued them on. Like these chains, I drilled a hole in his pelvis. I stuck the chain ends in there, maybe about a ½ inch. Waited for that to seal, glued it up, and then I sculpted the skull on top of it. And then these were sculpted separately. The cape was attached, everything was good to go, and then I just put these on, like little dabs super glue, and then put them on, and they're already there. And the chain on this arm is actually sculpted as opposed to just real chain glued on, because it, I don't know, it looked tacky. So I just decided, you know, I could get better scaling if I sculpted it on there. And all of his red armor pieces, pouches, spikes, those are all sculpted. And the cape is, of course, painted fabric. Alright, so there he is, my custom Spawn figure, based off of Greg Capullo's artwork when he was in charge of that. And Spawn's new look. And people are so divided about this, and still are to this day. And his boot is kind of a running gag, and people hate it. I don't know of anybody that really loves it, but it's just part of who he was at the time, and I wanted to capture that as much as I could. So I went 110% on this. And I love Spawn. So this one, I really impressed myself with this one, to be honest, and it's probably one of my favorite figures I've done in a while. So I'm really glad and I'm really happy. And I hope the client is really impressed and loves it as well. So thanks for watching.